ahead and set up some of these additional programs and people to get some of these sustainable models moving forward.
Colin?
Hi, folks. Colin McNamara. I live in Manchester. I just wanted to say a couple of quick things with some of the other commenters. I think they do want you to be afraid. It's a very confusing time the last couple of years, but one thing they keep reinforcing is you need to be afraid. And things aren't going to get better over the last couple of years. Things have gotten more centralized, and the money's gone more and more to the top, and that's the recurring theme. There isn't a broad populist movement to like help small people. It's like, shut up, sit down. The corporations are going to take over with the government, and that's what's going on. Now, some people might disagree with that, but that's what's happening behind the scenes and in the white papers and on these organizations' websites and whatnot. But this question is more, anyone can answer it, but it's more for Jason Rojas because he's the minority leader. The World Economic Forum is an international group of the most powerful corporations in the world, and it's been promoting the idea of a great reset. Reset means to bring back to zero, the definition, of the global economy, and it's pushed the idea through this slogan called Build Back Better. And it's a dog whistle for this agenda to, this is on the website, it says reinvent capitalism and to bring about a global technocracy. This is government through technology. Transhumanism, blending of man and machine is a big proponent of this, robotics and automation, removing people from jobs, that kind of stuff. So over the last couple of years, governments have colluded with corporations to limit personal rights and focus more on collective rights. President Biden's campaign website was buildbackbetter.gov, which now redirects to whitehouse.gov. And the CT Democratic Party Facebook page often pushes the Build Back Better agenda. As a House Minority Leader, why do you think it appropriate to limit people's personal freedoms while promoting the idea that multi-billion-dollar for-profit-driven corporations colluding with government bodies in public-private partnerships have the citizens' best interests in mind when an examination of any history book proves otherwise?
All right, so that was fairly convoluted. I mean, could you simplify the question for me?
Why are you guys usurping individual rights to promote more control from the government and corporations? Like, we have a liability-free pharmaceutical product that has no long-term safety testing data on it. It's completely new technology on a large scale. Not a single one of you have said a word about adult vaccine mandates, which historically and currently are affecting our minority populations the most. Mr. Curry is a member of the LGBTQ community, and I'm sure not too long ago, people of that community were discriminated against. Now you have a lot of people that are members of the minority community who don't want to get vaccinated because of historical issues, and you don't say a word. No one says a word. You just do it, and if you don't like it, tough shit. You lose your job, you lose your livelihood. You know, good luck in the unemployment line, which you probably won't get because you quit. So the question is, why do you think it's appropriate for governments to usurp? We're 6 or 7 votes to continue the emergency crisis. Why is it appropriate to keep going down this avenue of not allowing people to make their own decisions and instead having corporations and governments collude in a public-private partnership out of the purview of the public eye? These public-private partnerships are not subject to FOIA requests. We talked about this last meeting.
I don't know what public-private partnerships you're talking about.
I mean, you should know because you're the House Minority Leader. I'll tell you why.
Maybe just give an example.
Perfect. The Advanced CT is a nonprofit.
Right.
They got tasked with opening the reopening committee.
Right.
Lamont handpicked people that are from his past, his wife's business partner. It's a public-private partnership. That means the public can never look at any of their activities behind closed doors. We can't look at their minutes. We can't see the topics they talk about. We can't see the metrics they use. It's all hidden.
But nothing they issued was binding on anybody. They made recommendations to the governor.
Right, and the recommendations benefited multinational
so let's just be clear,
corporations.
right? They didn't do anything that was binding. They made recommendations. Is that right? Is that accurate?
It's making recommendations that...
so they didn't usurp your rights?
Yeah, okay. The government handpicked it because in a state of emergency he was allowed to. You guys should have been on that panel. Our representatives are elected, they're accountable to us, should be on that panel. Not Lamont's wife's business partner and not the Pepsi CEO, who's on the board of the World Economic Forum, who's all about usurping your rights and putting shit into your kids' bodies that's got no long-term safety test data. It's all about creating a digital ID for a social credit score. And this is what's happening in China. It's what's happening in Canada right now.
So
if you don't agree, they seize your bank account.
The World Economic Forum, that's all fine? That has nothing to do with the
It's not fine, but-
Connecticut General Assembly.
It's got tons to do
You
with
have
it.
a
That's the
question
thing.
that you'd
I
like
don't
us to
know.
answer, we can try to answer for you. I don't know about the Build Back Better World Economic Forum. I just don't know
Then you
about
shouldn't be in office if you don't know about these things.
Fine, but
Because
let's
these
ask a
things are
question that's
in the
relevant to
fore.
the work that we do.
It's like, I don't know about what multinational, the biggest companies in the world are doing and how they're colluding with government, but we're supposed to have faith in you guys? I don't have that much faith. But hey,
Just for the record, he's the House Majority Leader, not the Minority Leader.
oh, excuse me.
In case anybody's
Well,
watching.
maybe next term, who knows what will happen. I doubt it. People in Connecticut love to be pushed around, but so you don't have a reason why it's appropriate for governments and corporations to collude and take away individual rights?
I don't support that, no.
So why didn't any of you guys speak up when they're mandating Pfizer or Moderna jabs for people over Johnson & Johnson?
Are you talking about private employers making decisions for their employees?
I'm talking about corporations lobbying the government to push a pharmaceutical product with no long-term safety data.
Money.
It's money. Money talks, bullshit walks.
Okay.
That's why my shoes are so sore.
Sure.
All right, one other question for Mr. Doucette, because he's my rep. In February 2020, we exchanged several emails, and we even met in person in your office regarding the removal of the religious exemption to vaccination for children. I advocated the removal of this right would set a dangerous precedent that once the child's constitutional right was removed to decline a vaccine, it wouldn't be long before the government tried to mandate vaccines for adults. And you poo-pooed it, you shook your head, said it's never going to happen. Okay? This is in the emails too, like I completely disagree, it's never going to happen. In light of what's happened in the last 2 years and your complete silence on the issue regarding preserving bodily autonomy for adults or children, and from free of coercion or threats, why should anyone believe anything you say in a person's ability to make their own private medical decisions without fear of discrimination or segregation when you have been supportive or silent of adult vaccine mandates the whole time?
I don't think I've been silent.
You've advocated for them.
I don't think that's true. So you said supportive or silent. Yes, in some
You're-
respects, I was supportive of those
Right.
decisions. And you're conflating a lot of issues. We
No,
talked
no,
about,
no, we're not.
You are.
No, we're
We
not.
talked about the religious exemption.
I'm pretty
for
clear on these
childhood
issues.
Vaccines
Yeah.
like measles and mumps. Okay, and that was a separate decision that was made before it was being debated initially before we started talking about COVID vaccines. Okay, and I made the decision. You talked about constitutional rights and bodily autonomy. The law is well settled. I am an attorney. I'm not a big
You're a real estate attorney?
constitutional scholar, but the law is well settled on that
Mortgages.
question. Okay, so that was number
Estates.
one. Number two, yes, I have supported policies such as that vaccination
Discriminatory policies?
State-run hospital employees, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
things that were codified in the governor's orders, which I voted to codify a couple of weeks ago.
So it's good to keep the nurses and
for a
doctors on the job when they're doing the job, but when they refuse the vaccine, we fire them?
It's only a matter of weeks that those things will continue. We are on our way out of this pandemic.
2 years later?
Masks are coming off in schools on Monday. In fact, with no school tomorrow, so they're basically off. So bodily autonomy. We've been managing this pandemic. We've been measured in our response. I will defend it. I will defend my decisions and my votes. I always do. I posted my rationale on my social media, and you responded to it, and that's fine. You're entitled to your opinion on that. But I'll defend that. I've not been silent. And yes, I have been supportive of some things that you do not support.
So authoritarian
But
mandates.
I also engage with my constituents. I have absolutely not been silent, and I have listened to my constituents, and I believe the majority of my constituents, and you know this because I've told you this several times.
Dude, the majority of the South believe
My
Jim Crow laws are great.
decisions are in line with the majority of my constituents. I endeavor to at least have my decisions be in line with the majority of my constituents, and your views may not align with those. I understand that. So
They're
you're
principled.
entitled to your opinion, but I have not been silent, and I'll defend my decisions.
So can you just explain the rationale behind two things. The rationale behind firing nurses and doctors that worked through the whole pandemic, caught COVID naturally, then didn't want to get the vaccine, so they're canned. What's the rationale behind that? Because they already have natural immunity.
I'm not sure. So now the science, we can.
The science
so
changes.
You have data and articles that you would like to cite
I'm
on that.
not asking about science.
I think
I'm
it's
asking about-
debatable.
this isn't a science
I
issue.
don't think the natural immunity. I'm not a doctor, and neither are you, Colin. I don't think the natural immunity should be the issue that we're discussing. We're trying to manage through our way through a pandemic. We're talking about our healthcare system, where our most vulnerable people are being treated, and we're trying to manage this pandemic. And I believe that the decisions that we made were prudent and were supported by the majority of the population.
So in like January 12th, I think, the governor came out and said, we're going to put COVID positive patients back in the nursing homes. And this was also what happened in the previous March 13th. He said, we're going to put COVID positive patients back in the nursing homes. As a result, a lot of old timers unfortunately died. Guess what? You can put the state can put the COVID positive patients back in the nursing homes, but as a family member, a son, a daughter, you cannot go see your family member without being vaccinated.
I don't believe that statement is accurate,
All right.
Colin, okay? This last policy that was implemented saying that nursing homes they weren't required to take COVID positive patients. I had some questions about that as well, but
The science.
You have to look at where we are in January of 2022 as opposed to March or April of 2020 with the availability of the vaccine. And I know you question the efficacy of the vaccine. So
Did you read the paper? I can sit down.
So, there were some inaccuracies in your statement there, but again, we can agree to disagree on this, Colin. I'm happy to talk to you anytime, have you back to my office, and thank you for your comment.
Anybody else who'd like to ask a question or make a comment? Sure.
Just drop some things off based on what I said earlier.
Sure.
You had a set for Steve Casano